It's the recognition of self versus non-self that's really, really important in understanding the Wei Qi dynamic and the white blood cell dynamic. This does not mean having, especially when we're looking at autoimmune conditions and allergies and sensitivities and things, it doesn't have to do with the way that Western medicine views having a strong defensive system. Because oftentimes when they're treating autoimmunity and sensitivities, they're suppressing the immune system. Now, we would never do that. We don't suppress the immune system. We address the aspects of excess that are showing up that are compromising the system. And that might be heat, and that might be dampness, and that might be damp heat, and that might be blood stasis. And it might be any type of excess. It might be qi stagnation. But we have to look underneath that and say, what is it that's weak? Because there's always going to be an underlying aspect of weakness that's associated with this elevation. And so we don't want to suppress the immune system. We want to make its ability to differentiate self from non-self stronger. We want its adaptive component stronger. So we have to ask ourselves, does that have to do with the dynamics of the yuan qi and the kidney? Does it have to do with the dynamics of the spleen, how I think about things, how I think about the world? Does it have to do with the expression at the lung level? Am I too controlling and metal and I want things a certain way? So all of those are very important. That if we look at the makeup of the immune organs, and here we just have, in this slide that I stole from somewhere on the internet, we have tonsils, lymph nodes, thymus gland, bone marrow, spleen. And, these are all aspects. There are more aspects of it. Peyer's patches in the intestines, the junction between the small intestine and the large intestine. So this isn't everything. But all these components have to do with, first line of defense, second line of defense. So we think of the first line of defense being like the tonsils that kind of capture anything that's getting through the respiratory system. And in the tonsils have these defensive M cells, which capture the antigens and alert the B and T cells. B cells associated with bone marrow, T cells associated with thymus. Lymph nodes, going down these organs here, lymph nodes are adaptive aspects of the immune system that filter pathogens. The lymph nodes themselves look like little spleens, little baby spleens. So you just think of all of these little spleens that are breaking things down like the big spleen does, and taking it through the system and through the waterworks to show up on the Colli spaces, to show up on the surface, to be able to take those threatening pathogens and to take care of them without too much disturbance in the host. The thymus gland produces T cells whose job it is to recognize and remove pathogens. These T cells remember. The thymus gland kind of sits and rests on the pericardium. And oftentimes people who do have a real strong sense of what's going on with their body will say when they're feeling really guilty about something, it feels heavy on their heart. And this heaviness on the heart, I automatically associate with this sense of guilt, with this sense of this heaviness that I have done this to another. I have done this to myself. So the thymus gland being like on top of the pericardium, on top of the heart, that to me, it's very much associated with that dynamic that we may start out in life thinking that we're different from everything else. And we learn our way to differentiate ourselves and separate ourselves. But then later in life, the differentiation becomes something where I find myself connected to all of life. If I am growing in Shen and wisdom, I don't find life more threatening as I mature through life. I find it less threatening. I become more like everything else. Everything else is more like me. I am more friendly with my environment. My environment is friendly with me. So these are the most important aspects that determine the healthy functioning of an immune system. Then everything else that comes after that, after the heart, then we're looking at management. So all white blood cells are produced or manufactured in the bone marrow. That's the origination of the Wei Qi, the kidney's origin of the Wei Qi, that provides the ability to produce white blood cells. So the kidneys are the production site. The spleen, stomach is the information site. And then the lung is the circulation site. The thymus is also associated with the lungs control of the Wei Qi, in addition to pericardium and small intestine, and the way that the heart carries out its function inside the inner kingdom. Working with the sinews, the sinew channels, with the chiseling technique, stimulates white blood cells. Hot needling, cauterizing, stimulates white blood cells. Moxibustion, radiation, infrared lamps stimulate the immune system.